This video is sponsored by Squarespace.
Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and I've got a bit of a problem. I just made a positive video. The universe is currently out of balance. For every action, there must be an equal and opposite reaction, and for every Evitel is a great villain, there must be this. Dragonflight is already a much loved expansion gameplay-wise. The issue that most people seem to have with it generally is the story. And I could sit here and give examples of storytelling that I like in Dragonflight all day long. Evitel in the Dawn of the Aspects dungeon. Oh no, wait, I've done him already. Right. Almost all of the epilogue quest lines. Almost. But that wouldn't balance the universe, would it? And also, it would be willfully ignoring a lot of what I think are very fair issues that lots of players have with the story and its delivery. And we're going to be looking at some of those issues today. We've highlighted before the terrible level 70 ding experience that sees story quests from no less than 5 different patches pop up simultaneously in Valdrakken with no clue or context as to which order they come in chronologically or what they even do. And this does remain, I think, a huge issue with Dragonflight's story for me, but I think this expansion's delivery fails in a number of smaller ways too. So join us as we have a cathartic little moan dressed up as a critical analysis, because that's how we do things on this channel, and highlight 8 big Dragonflight story fails, okay? Go, 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 go. Dragonflight had a number of major quests that were locked behind renown. And let's be clear, the idea of quests being unlocked as a reward for progressing that zone's renown tree can be a really fun thing. For an example of where it's done absolutely right, there's the Iskara Tuskar renown unlocks, the Chieftain's Duty. Yeah, the Tuskar get it right, who knew? A quest line where we are sent to visit another Tuskar tribe whose chieftain has been struggling with crippling self-doubt ever since the loss of their beloved Otuk. It's a beautiful story that really explores the nature of Tuskar culture and even rewards hunter players the ability to tame Otuks of their own. It obviously doesn't feel crucial to the main story, so there's no need to race to unlock it or much fear of this story being spoiled. It's not going to be making headline news. At the same time, it's probably one of the best story experiences in Dragonflight. It really helps make Tuskar culture feel alive and something that players have genuinely connected with. All in all, 10 out of 10, no notes. No, really, no notes, because this video is about the fails. Dragonscale Expedition Reputation unlocks 2 quest lines, the Sealed Titan Door and Opening the Door. The in-game summary for the first quest line is really quite long for what the quest line is. We just find a Sealed Titan Door and we can't open it, and that's it. That's the quest. The second quest line is a lot more interesting. We finally get to open the door, and then we go through the door and we find out that Tyr used to experiment on the different dragonflights while they were still proto-drakes. An unusually dark side of Dragon Buddy Tyr that should be a revelation on the scale of finding out that they were feeding proto-drakes mind control order water, and yet it isn't. It kind of is, because nothing happened about that either. In fact, there has been very little discussion about this, and the game itself hasn't really mentioned it since. In fact, it's still unclear if the aspects themselves even know what the Dragonscale expedition discovered. Proof that their friend was experimenting on their kind in very questionable ways before they even met him? You'd think they might be mildly interested in that. Tyr was cataloguing the life cycle and overall potency of the various proto-dragon phenotypes in the Dragon Isles, although for what purpose, we're uncertain. But the fact that he went to such lengths to keep this facility and its contents a secret, that's the real mystery. And here we have that classic case of our video game characters knowing some pretty important information that they cannot share with people who really might want to know it. At this point in the story, Alexstraza and the other aspects are trying to bring back Tyr. Yeah, awesome. How about we mention all that news about the weird Tyr experiments, Toddy? How about that? Oh shit, Tyr is back now. Should we mention the weird experiments? Everyone seems pretty happy. I don't want to spoil the mood, but there is the whole weird experiments thing, you know? And wait, Virinoth is one of the aspects now? Well, she's definitely not going to be okay with that, since it was Tyr that imbued all the Incarnate eggs with Titan magic against their will and consent, and that's literally the main reason she joined the war against the aspects in the first place. She probably has at least a follow-up question or two regarding Tyr's return. I don't know, Toddy. I just just feel like the whole weird experiments thing is maybe the kind of thing we should mention. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe they'll address it in a later quest and I'm worrying over nothing. Oh, no, they didn't. Oh, I just know about this really terrible, awkward thing that I'm keeping strangely secret from numerous different characters in weirdly different ways. Does he know I know? Does he know I know? As renown quest lines go, this one went nowhere. And if it was meant to convey important information about the main story, it feels like it failed in that task too. Then there's the Garden of Secrets, a quest line that unlocked at renown 19 with the Valdrakken Accord, and that turned out to be the entire basis for Dragonflight's final major patch. In this questline, players witness Malfurion and Tyrande planting the seed of Yggdrasil within the Emerald Dream, before Malfurion agrees to take Ysera's place in the Emerald Dream so that Ysera herself could return to the land of the living in Azeroth for the important task of melting some ice. And I'm not even going to touch the actual story itself in this one. This fail is all about the unlock. Renown 19 is pretty high up on the renown tree. Most players would take a few weeks at least to reach this point, but it was possible to unlock much quicker. In fact, the world first playthrough of this questline was available not even a week after the release of Dragonflight. This, of course, had to do with the fact that there was no hard cap on renown. A good thing. But it also meant that the cinematic and Malfurion spoilers were out there within a week, and those second-hand spoilers is how most of the community first experienced them and formed their opinions on them. And they have every right to do that, but it's not ideal for us or for Blizz. And I think we can all accept after this little experiment that whereas locking quests behind renown can be a fun, good thing, doing it with mainline story that has banging cinematics is probably not the best idea. But there's also a reverse Uno flip side to this fail. What if you don't know that there's important story behind the renown, and so you miss it altogether? It's just rep after all, and if you don't care about pets or backpacks, you might safely assume that you could skip it with no harm done. Well, actually, no, it turns out plenty of harm done. You might think this sounds silly, but I know numerous people who have done this. Not that I would mention any names, because I don't want to embarrass them. No public shaming here, just because they're professional WoW enjoyers who couldn't be bothered doing their Valdrakken renown. And I would never betray my own wife like that. I'll never reveal her name. Let's move on to raiding, and we'll start with a little quick one, but Yggdrasil suffers from one of my favourite raid story issues that you get in WoW, making up stupid reasons why we have to fight and kill characters who, honestly, they're fine. We shouldn't really want to kill them. Like Nimue and Council. These guys are nice. They're on our side. But Blizz, understandably, wanted at least some fights in the World Tree raid that felt like they were like tree themed instead of it just being fire everywhere all the time. So we get...
Trespassers, your very presence disturbs the balance of this place. You will be destroyed.
The Guardian of the Seed will...
The Guardian of the Seed.
The Guardian of the Seed will never relent. They will die to keep you from it.
And I'm like, yeah, okay, whoa, well, if it comes to that, but, you know, we're not really trespassers, are we, Marithra? We got you with us for a start. Heck, we got Ysera outside. She'd vouch for us. Half our raid are druids. I see no reason why we can't just talk this through and solve it amicably.
A grievous sacrifice, but one we shall not waste. Rest well, dear one.
Oh, right, okay, well, sorry, Nimue. But I do have a point to make about story in raids and dungeons too. I've already said how much I like the plot and delivery in Dawn of the Aspects, the mega dungeon, and there's some really nice stuff in Dragonflight raids as well. The problem is, it is apparently very easy for players to completely miss it. I've lost track of the amount of times on stream that I've casually summarized the story of the mega dungeon, like offhand, only for many people in the chat to suddenly realize they had not taken any of it in at all. And there's a particularly notable fail of this sort in Aberrus. During the story of Zaralet Caverns, we witnessed both Sibelian and Wrathion being affected by some influence in that zone, causing the worst side of them to come to the surface. Sibelian began to act arrogant and uncaring. Wrathion came across as childishly boastful, a sign of his insecurities. The two, already conflicting over the leadership of the Black Dragonflight, became more competitive than ever. This culminated in the raid, where the two come face to face with the Echo of Neltharion, which immediately dialed up its attempts to manipulate them. Ultimately, both Wrathion and Sibelian reject the Echo of Neltharion. When they do, it immediately switches from flattery to insults and tries to pit them against each other. Goes from reassuring Wrathion about his creation to using it to try and hurt him. Wrathion and Sibelian have spent most of Dragonflight grappling with the fact that they're living under Neltharion's shadow. And by the Echo of Neltharion encounter, they get to fight this shadow directly correctly. In the end, the Echo of Neltharion is revealed to be a faceless one, a servant of the old gods. These two black dragons have been dealing with the oldest problem that their flight has always faced, old god whispers, but they have defeated it. After Sarkareth's defeat, they embrace this freedom further by rejecting the exact thing that the whispers were trying to tempt them with, the position of Neltharion's heir, represented by leadership over the black dragonflight, and give it to Abyssian instead. Now, even if you don't ultimately agree with the conclusion of this story, it at least explains why Wrathion and Sibelian decide not to claim leadership in the end. In my opinion, it's honestly quite a nice story that utilizes the fights within the raid extremely well. But how many of you noticed it? Even if you noticed the voice lines going on, how many of you connected it to the meaning that I just presented to you? For many players, the story appeared more like this. Oh, these two dumbos are acting even worse than usual in Zaralek Caverns. Wrathion's even acting in ways that go against all his character development. This is character assassination. There's some ghost stuff in this raid, and I didn't catch that because I'm too busy rolling on loot or chatting shit with my buds. And a cinematic that I already saw when it was posted on Wowhead Plays at some point. Apparently Wrathion and Sibelian don't want to be leader anymore, even though up until this very moment, competing for it has been like their whole thing. In this case, the story in the raid is actually quite detailed in the way it ties into the story that leads us into the raid. But I do think that Wrathion and Sibelian's story in Aberrus is really good and really meaningful, and I do think it's a real shame that it has passed so many people by. It's hard to know here if this is Blizzard's fault or ours, or what the answer is, honestly, because I don't want to lose interesting and important story from dungeons and raids, but if so many people are flat out missing or misunderstanding the plot beats because of them, it seems we have a real problem, doesn't it? And I'm not joking here, I honestly don't know the answer to this one, fam. I'm gonna need some input, but one thing's certain, something is failing somewhere along the line here in a big way. Oh, there's another raid fail in Dragonflight 2. Even if you do care about the story and you are paying attention and you head into LFR every week to consume it, because that's the only way you can consume it, there are really stupid issues with how LFR breaks up the raid. In the story of Emirdrasil, we have to collect 2 seeds of life in order to have the power to reach Firak. Marithra says, within this temple's sacred halls are seeds of life. Sorry. With their power, we can reach Firak and stop this madness. I have opened the dreamways for you. Tread carefully. The creatures within are not welcoming to mortals. It's not exactly the most in-depth plot, but it is the plot. If you're going through Emirdrasil in LFR, however, something weird happens. The first wing ends with the Smolderon fight, but reaching Smolderon requires the seeds of life, which are only collected in the second and third LFR wings.
The seeds of life are in place. Emirdrasil awaits our defense.
So if you're playing LFR, which is supposed to be basically story mode, for the story, you're not getting the story. Not as it's supposed to play out anyway. You're getting a disjointed mess, which you only get to finish up a month after everyone else anyway. The next segment is quite a big one with lots of nuance, but it basically boils down to this. Alexstraza is just a bit useless and weird and dumb.
Hello everyone, it's just little old me here to say hello and to give a big old shout out to Squarespace who are sponsoring today's video. I bet you didn't see that one coming. Now, you know Tally and I are always trying to come up with new and exciting ways to share with you all. Not like that, please. So I am super happy that we've managed to get our own podcast off the ground. It's a WoW podcast, obviously. We've managed 7 episodes by now, which is no small feat, but you know what the most exciting thing about all this has been? Making a dedicated podcast page on our website. Heck yeah. No joke, it's been ages since we've had any reason to add a whole other page to this bad boy, but thankfully Squarespace makes it super simple to build on your existing site. You can go solo and add a new blank page, or use one of Squarespace's lovely pre-made templates to build exactly what you need. I actually used the pre-existing services template, don't even think about it, and changed it up to make a nice wavy page that links out to the billion different places where you can listen to our podcast. As However, customizing this stuff is a breeze, and Squarespace has these nifty existing color themes that stick within the bigger scheme of your site while giving you some options. And of course, once it's all done and dusted, the website editor makes it easy to go in and make any necessary tweaks. Let's be real here. Speaking of keeping it real, you know what I'm going to tell you, and you know it's true. You, my friend, can get yourself your own shiny website and 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain if you go to squarespace.com/Taliesin Evitel or use code Taliesin Evitel. Podcast unfortunately not included, but hey, if we can do it, I'm like 1000% you can do it too. That's squarespace.com/Taliesin Evitel. Oh, and check out the podcast too while you're at it.
One of the complaints that people bring up a lot with regards to Dragonflight is that this expansion feels toothless. The stakes just aren't high. The factions are all good friends now, no one's fighting, nothing tragic happens, no threat really feels serious. It's supposed to be called World of Warcraft, but these days it's feeling like World of Wokecraft. I understand if you feel that way, but I would also understand if you were surprised by this idea that somehow Dragonflight is a Disney theme park of an expansion where nothing bad happens, because bad stuff definitely happens. One of the first dragons we meet in Dragonflight is Cadet Sendrax, who is lovely and funny and brave, and she dies. In Zaralet Caverns, Firak sets fire to the zone's hub, the village of Loam, killing a significant portion of the population, just minutes after he smoked a lovely centaur guy who we have to bury. When we first meet Marithra and Garithus, their companion, Solithus, is killed by the Primalists, and later Garithus, Marithra's son, is captured and tortured by Firak, an experience that he speaks about still being traumatized by in the Emerald Dream. Firak himself is just flying around the Isles, setting fire to everything. The entire Drakthir storyline throughout the expansion is about how they were literally mind-controlled combat slaves for hundreds of years, and then were basically buried alive in coffins when Lotharion was done with them. There are huge and bloody casualties on our side during what I'm going to call the Battle of the Bloom in Emirdrasil, which I admit is not a particularly badass name. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but we kill Nimue for literally no reason. We did not have to kill Nimue. I will die on this hill, except she already died on it, whatever. So bad, nasty, mature things happen in Dragonflight. There are high stakes in Dragonflight, but I do agree that they don't often feel very high. And why is that? I already hinted at it, and I don't want to point fingers or anything, but a major reason, in my opinion, is Alexstraza, who is weird and useless and a bit dumb. Firak is flying around burning everything. Alexstraza's talking like all the threats have been vanquished because you killed the Drakthir Firak was using as a decoy. The day has been won, apparently, even though we opened a huge portal to the void, and also Firak is burning everything. If it feels low stakes, at least part of that is because Alexstraza keeps telling us it is. And she should know how dangerous everything actually is, because she keeps getting her ass handed to her by basically anything that picks a fight with her. All throughout Dragonflight, arguably the main character has routinely come across as vapid or out of touch. In the Cause Without a Rebel questline, Alex seems genuinely surprised when her slaves object somewhat to being slaves. I have my own dreams beyond fighting wars for dragons. I had not considered this. And look, it's good that she learned and everything. It's not like she or the game turned around and did a full J.K. Rowling style. No, they like being slaves. They wouldn't like it if they weren't slaves. Don't be cruel. Don't stop them being slaves. That would be kind of terrible if WoW ever did that. But don't worry, WoW would never do that. Never, ever. So yay, she learned, and I actually like this quest, but I did come out of it thinking, Alexstraza is kind of useless and weird and dumb. The way she doesn't rush to see Ysera when she comes back from the actual Shadowlands for a bit, not even saying hello until she's leaving, so it's really goodbye, and it just seems a bit weird and useless and dumb. The way she says at the end of Emirdrasil that they have succeeded in uniting the Dragonflights previously torn apart by the Titan's power, and it's like, no, Alexstraza, you just killed one of the dragons who was estranged because of the Titan's power. One of the other dragons is still out there furthering his plan specifically to destroy the Titans. You have united a grand total of one dragon who was previously estranged because of the Titan's power. And on that subject, the way she seems really into the idea of patching things up with Virinoth while also running around trying to bring Tia back, it's at best tone deaf, at worst shockingly callous and shifty.
But the eggs, Alexstraza.
And I don't think she is shifty, I just think she's kind of weird and useless and dumb. And I don't think she should be weird and useless and dumb, okay? I think she should be cool. I think at the very least she should have done something like one single awesome thing this expansion. One badass moment. One thing only she could do. In the Dragonflight launch trailer, she rejuvenates the barren land beneath by doing magical life breath on it. That's cool. I've been waiting for her to do that all expansion, but the epilogues are over now, so I don't think it's happening. Alexstraza isn't as glaring a wasted character as Bolvar in Shadowlands, but I certainly think she has been used inconsistently, and overall she just comes across as a bit of a weird, useless, dumb fail. And honestly, that breaks my heart to say that, but it's true. Do you remember earlier when I said I loved almost all of the epilogue quests? Yeah, let's talk about Gilneas. The taking back of Gilneas is a huge deal narratively. It's been an event we've been waiting for literally a decade. And here's the thing, I'm not actually going to criticize the story of these quests. I'm not going to worry about Kalia or the Forsaken being there, and I'm not going to go on about how awesome the Gen and Tess cinematic is, although it is, or how much I like Gen seen by Liam's grave, although I did. All of that's fine. No, for me, the fail about these quests are they shouldn't have happened in 10.2.5. Taking back Gilneas is such a huge deal. It doesn't matter if the quests are good. It doesn't matter if the cinematics are good. It doesn't matter who your enemy is or if your old enemies are helping. It's just never going to feel like we've done enough by taking it back in one patch. And what's frustrating about this is that it's such a no-brainer. The answer was right there. What does every Dragonflight patch need? Repeatable gameplay and events, usually centered on one small part of one particular zone. You can see where I'm going here? What do we get in 10.2.5? Azeroth Archives and Digs, which personally I stopped bothering with when I realized I didn't get anything at any level of rep that I reached, so why bother? Maybe there's something at last level 5 I didn't check. I don't know, but the damage has been done. What could we have got instead? Dailies and events for the Siege of Gilneas. We should have spent this patch fighting skirmishes outside the city, blocking supply lines, building up our own resources. The Owly event should have been the Scarlet Crusade, sending out a champion to F us up, and us all combining to fight them back. With that kind of groundwork, and it's not any more than we got with the Archives and the Digs, you could have had the exact same quest line to actually retake the city in 10.26, and it would have felt like a much bigger deal, because we would have been fighting towards it, Gilneas and Forsaken both, for 2 months previously. And also there should have been a rep tree where you got stuff for reaching new levels. Like seriously, why is this so hard? Oh, there we go. I feel a lot better now after that little moan. I mean, thoughtful critical analysis of some of the failings of Dragonflight storytelling. But what do you think? Where has the Dragonflight story fallen flat? What can Blizz do to avoid the same mistakes next time? I genuinely love reading the responses and ideas to videos like this. So genuinely, let us know in the comments below. And thanks for joining us today. If you like this video, don't thank us, thank our patrons who kindly give us their real life money to make all our work happen. And guys, seriously, thank you. Thank you so much, because without you, there would be a whole lot less Taliesin and Evitel. Big thanks too to our co-writer on this script, Discordian Kitty. Check out her own YouTube channel for even more interesting lore takes. Of course, all those links are in the description below. If you didn't like this video, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Flying Buttress. No, my name is Taliesin from me and Evitel too. Until next time, cheerio.